This week on Footnotes, your favourite movies are being cancelled. I was browsing Facebook the other day and stumbled across something that piqued my interest, an article describing how woke teens label American Pie deeply problematic, with the caption helpfully proclaiming, they were outraged. Naturally, this sparked my interest, so I headed into the comments to see what other people thought. It was not good. Like I care what this younger generation cares. If you are a parent and financially enabling one of these woke zoomers, stop it. Movie was made during a time when teens had thicker skins and didn't act like victims of everything. Woke teens can F off. What the world had before your kind, kindly leave it alone. Long live the American Pie franchise, lol. It's a comedy. If you're taking it seriously, then there's something wrong with you. Now with a response like this, you would expect that these teenagers would have some absolutely garbage takes. So clicking on this article, we can see that, oh, this isn't even a primary source. Yeah, this article that got so many up in arms isn't even the original article, it's a summary of a Vice article. So naturally, when we visit the original article, pieces of the puzzle start falling into place. This is actually part 2 in a series of articles written by its author, Rosie Hewitson, with the explicit purpose of seeing how these movies have aged for younger demographics. Listen to how Hewitson herself describes it in this embarrassingly written introduction. I wonder how these films would be received today. Gen Z teens are woker than previous generations. They follow Barbie Ferreira on Instagram and do climate strikes. They've heard of the gender spectrum and pay no attention to Piers Morgan. So what do they think of the classic rom-coms that made millions at the box office just a decade or two ago? So yeah, this journalist sat a bunch of teenage girls down and had them watch American Pie specifically through the lens of how it compares to the modern day. And knowing that they were tasked with watching these films through this lens, knowing that these opinions weren't given out of the blue or spontaneously, do you really think that this is an unbiased selection of comments? Or are they maybe the result of leading questions given to teenagers who were selected specifically because they may not agree with everything that's in these movies? I reached out to the author to try and find out how this whole process occurred, and while I didn't get a response, I think it's safe to say that this article was skewed from its inception. And it becomes even more distorted when you look at how Stefan Armitage, the author of the article I saw on Facebook, describes this whole series of events. Vice journalist Rosie Hewitson recently asked a group of teenagers aged between 16 and 19 to watch a number of popular classic teen movies, such as American Pie, Clueless, and Dude, Where's My Car? And the results are pretty much what you'd expect from 2023 teenagers. Between this and the title, Woke Teens Call American Pie Deeply Problematic, it makes their opinions seem a lot more unwarranted than they actually were. It makes it seem like all teenagers can do is complain and whine rather than be asked for their thoughts on old movies. So let's see what it was that these teens found deeply problematic about the film in the first place. And it's a scene where the main character, Jim, broadcasts a girl naked to the internet without her consent. Oh boy. The result is exactly what you would expect from 2023 teenagers. Let me remind you that a lot of the girls featured in this article are between 16 and 18 years old, you know, the exact same age as Nadia, the girl in this scene. They showed them this scene of someone who may as well be one of their peers being filmed naked without her consent and asked for their opinions on it. It's not as if the film exactly condemns Jim for doing this either. The only negative to this is that he gets slightly embarrassed, but he still ends up losing his virginity by the end of the film because of this whole incident.
I saw you on the net. Why do you think I accepted this date? You're a sure thing.
Yes, I am.
And then these girls, who've likely dealt with fears of this exact thing, weren't too keen on the idea of this being played for laughs or rewarded by the end of the film. I have never in my life witnessed such a degree of childish, privileged, unstable, yes I said unstable, bunch of spoiled babies who think it should all be handed to them. It is clear to me that you have all lost touch with reality. Such a shame. So I think it's safe to say that the outrage surrounding this whole discourse, if you can call it that, has been completely manufactured by biased journalists in order to farm outrage and attention. This guy, Stefan, took an article where some teenage girls were presented with a movie they didn't think very highly of and invented yet another instance of cancel culture in time for the newest American Pie's release. Oh yeah, there's some important context you should know. American Pie is getting a sequel. Stefan's article was written a few months after it was first announced to capitalize on the newfound attention it's getting, draw some new eyes to this supposed backlash, and generate clicks and engagement based on a trending topic. It's so parasitic. The original Vice article was written in 2020. It's only getting new backlash now because the cockroaches at VT needed to reignite a culture war issue to farm outrage revenue. Stop the presses, everyone. Some teenage girls had an opinion about a film that you might have disagreed with 3 years ago. What's even more insulting is that this article worked. It managed to ignite a misplaced outrage on behalf of a 23-year-old movie directed at a demographic who aren't even the film's target audience and who are affected by a lot of the themes and attitudes it presents. It's also very interesting that Stefan, as well as a lot of other people who defend this movie, are fully grown dudes who would have been this film's exact target audience when it was released. People who identify with Jim himself rather than the girl whose consent he violates. It really reads as though him and this film's defenders are taking this a tad personally. What do you mean they don't like American Pie? American Pie's my movie. They're literally me. I'm not an incel. They didn't like Eurotrip either. They called Eurotrip cringe. These teenage girls called me cringe. And the people getting so up in arms about this are useful idiots, only doing so because it fits into the picture that a lot of articles like this seek to paint, that of everything you hold dear being attacked by this new scary agenda that you don't understand. They make it out to be some core pillar of who you are as a person, or a representation of you that's under attack, rather than some outdated movie with questionable humor that hasn't aged well. And if that is a good representation of you, then you have my sincerest condolences. To show you what I mean, let's now turn to the hosts of the YouTube channel Pop Culture Crisis, who describe themselves as your source of sanity while navigating the insane world of pop culture. In the aftermath of this second article getting a bunch of outraged attention, Pop Culture Crisis decided to release a video sharing their takes on these opinions, which, let me remind you, were specifically asked for by the person who wrote the original article for Vice. Their video, titled "Woke Gen Z is Offended by 90s and 2000s Comedies Like American Pie," only serves to further sling indignation and defensiveness to its viewers, and this is best demonstrated by their actual responses to what these teenagers had to say.
It's a huge violation of privacy and definitely a sexual offense.
These people must be so much fun at parties. Like,
The Zoomers don't go to parties.
Oh, okay. This 23-minute video barely serves as a response to the original article, but rather to place it within a greater narrative, the culture war between generations, between the cool, hip Gen Xers versus the overly sensitive, whiny Gen Z who want to cancel everything that you know and love. The title alone should make it clear that they aren't interested in actually representing this article fairly, but simply to confirm the biases of everyone watching as well as those of the hosts. Look at what they say about the upcoming American Pie movie.
Like, maybe that's what it was. They'll have some kid in the movie abuse a pie with his dick and then say it's to be inclusive for pies. It's pie inclusion.
She looks so uncomfortable. It's funny because you can barely get a sense of what this guy, Brett, is actually angry about. It's just word salad used to generate outrage. Grr, wokeness, sensitive teenagers, inclusivity, having sex with a pie isn't inclusive to pies, grr. Like, what are you even angry about, man? I don't think even he knows, considering he makes claims that are flat out wrong in order to defend the film. They defend the scene where Jim secretly broadcasts the foreign exchange student by claiming that the film doesn't endorse his actions and the scene actually mocks him for it.
In what way is American Pie celebrating their pervy behavior? It's making a mockery of it.
And in a way, it celebrates it by not, because these people want you to be beat over the head with somebody saying, you're a bad person. Like, they need to be spoon-fed the answer.
Very weird.
And this is just straight up untrue, because the whole driving force of the boys' actions throughout the film is their desperation to lose their virginities. It informs everything they do throughout, and it ends up working out perfectly for them. I mean, the final scene of the film shows Jim on a phone call with the girl he secretly recorded, who's now all of a sudden into him. No, you don't get it, guys. The film is actually a really subtle and subversive masterpiece. This movie actually condemns the characters' actions by rewarding them at every turn. You're really supposed to disagree with the characters, I swear. Unless you're a teenage girl, then just sit down and shut up. These guys aren't defending the movie itself, rather they're defending the idea of it, what it represents. And it's the same for all the people who got so up in arms about these teenagers' opinions. To these people, it's no longer a movie that hasn't aged very well, it's a piece of their childhood, of an untouchable past before wokeness corrupted everything and, ruined comedy. Brett even calls the critics of these movies Marxists.
The difference is, back then, the people that ran these studios felt that they were in the right and that the moms from the religious groups were in the wrong. Now they believe that the people writing them the letters and complaining about this stuff, the Marxists, are right. Therefore, they will back out and step down and not make the content that people actually want.
Yeah.
And this really gives the game away, because now, instead of some high school girls being asked for their opinions about a movie, it's them, the Marxists, trying to go back in time and cancel not just your favorite movies, but I guess everything that was important to you growing up. All it takes to confirm these people's biases is one dishonest journalist masquerading as an impartial reporter to skew the facts for monetary gain. And then these people, desperate to never look at things they enjoyed with a critical eye, take that bias and run with it, feeding into each other's need to be validated and playing this strange game of outrage telephone, and never truly knowing what they're actually angry about, all to avoid admitting that a 23-year-old movie isn't perfect. I guess what I'm really trying to say is, Gen Xers cry at kids not liking their childhood movies. They were outraged.